Hey guys, it's Avi from JustWriteMusic.com. Now, I have seen and heard a lot of musicians and a lot of songwriters out there decry music theory as a complete waste of time and a total creativity killer. Now, I used to be one of these people. I used to believe this exact same thing, and maybe you also believe it at this very juncture. Music theory just isn't working for you, and that's fine. But why isn't it working for you? That's what I want to talk about today. Now, when I look back on the time of my life where I too decried music theory, it wasn't actually music theory that was the problem. Rather, it was my resistance towards using it and my lack of knowledge and experience with it that distorted its functional role within songwriting, at least to my perspective at the time. The concepts are really abstract sometimes, and I found it difficult to see how this applied to the songwriting process or the music creation process. And I really think that this is a mistake that a lot of teachers make when teaching music theory, a mistake I myself have totally been guilty of committing. I have no doubt that there are a ton of you that also felt the exact same way that I felt. So I'd like to share with you my 3 reasons why music theory just didn't work for me. Now, the first reason it didn't work for me was because I wasn't really aware of what music theory was and what music theory wasn't. The reality was that I was already using music theory. We can't play a single chord without functionally using music theory. And that's the key word, functionally. Music theory is derived from the phenomenon of playing music. It creates language and mechanisms to understand and to manipulate it. Now, the thing is, a lot of these functional concepts are taught alongside instruments during the learning process. This is why when, say, you're taking guitar lessons, you're going to learn chords and scales and notes and the string names and all that stuff. That's all part of music theory. All this stuff is part of the fundamental building blocks of music theory, but if you were like me, I was just not really paying attention to the more abstract stuff and just couldn't see how it was helpful. But once I really dove into music theory, dove into? English is weird. Regardless, once I really dove in, things really started to click. But I ran into a problem. I was super into the theory. I was actually loving the concept, loving learning it, but as I was writing with it, my music started to feel dry and formulaic, which in itself led me to my next mistake. I wasn't using music theory properly in my process. Now, everyone's process is going to be a little bit different, and everyone's use of theory in this sense also may vary depending on what they feel like helps them and keeps their creative process and flow state going. But I also believe that this is where the creativity killer complaint tends to come from. Plenty of dedicated and passionate composers and songwriters have learned some theory, but found the music that they wrote from it dry and contrived, like I did. Well, that's because it was. My process kind of went something like this. I'm gonna write a 4-chord song, right? 1, 5, 6, 4. So many hit songs using that chord progression, totally doable. Should be easy, right? Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with this, and this is actually a really fantastic exercise. But theory in the songwriting and music creation process, in my experience, is best utilized as a tool to solve a problem. Basically, we should only use it when we need it, when we run into something that our inner ear can't figure out. If we don't run into any problems and our inner ear just keeps on churning along, there's no reason to stop and start analyzing what you've written. Just keep going, just keep writing, man. Do it. When we're inspired, we're writing in a kind of flow state through our inner ear, and that connection is very strong in that type of state. But when we're using theory and writing from theory only, we often get caught up in analyzing every move we make, which in turn kind of inhibits that inspired flow state from starting in the first place. I was using a formulaic process of writing music that was at odds with what I enjoyed about it. And it wasn't producing any quality music. It wasn't producing any quality material. And this leads me to the 3rd reason why music theory just didn't work for me. I didn't internalize music theory. In hindsight, this was the reason why it didn't seem... In hindsight, this was the big reason why music theory didn't seem to work for me when I used it. It didn't seem very effective. I just hadn't internalized much of it yet. Internalizing music theory allows your brain to use it as a kind of translator for your inner ear. Not in the sense of like, oh, I'm hearing a first inversion C chord. It's much more streamlined than that, allowing you to understand your inner ear better, which in turn makes it easier to externalize what's going on in your inner ear and bring it into the physical world. The process of internalizing involves taking abstract concepts, like a scale, and learning to apply and recognize them. A scale isn't internalized after you've memorized all its positions. It's internalized when you can comfortably improvise over it and write with it and feel like you're making music. After that, you don't even really have to think about using it. You're just going to, and your inner ear will know it. It'll recognize it, just better than it did before. Now that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Comment below with your experience on music theory and your journey with it, whether you were like me and thought it had zero value in songwriting, or didn't even know what role it was actually supposed to play in songwriting, or if you were just like taking private lessons and doing theory stuff from the beginning and you're just like super awesome and blah blah blah. Don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and if you're super into it, hit the bell to be notified when new videos are coming out. Now, if you're looking for some tools to help you take your melody game up a notch, I've got my free guide, 7 Ways to Write a More Effective Melody. It's got great tools and techniques that you can use to make any melody in any genre just a little bit more refined and to meet your standards. Navigate on down to justwritemusic.com. There is a link in the description. I'm Avi from justwritemusic.com. I'll see you next time.